Hello all. In today's session of metrology and instrumentation, we will be dealing with classification of transducers. The transducers can be classified into the 5 categories as shown below. First one is active and passive transducer. Second one is analog and digital transducer. Third one is on the basis of transduction principle used. And fourth classification is primary and secondary transducer. And fifth is transducers and inverse transducers. Let us see one by one in detail. Let us discuss in detail about the first category, that is active and passive transducer. First, let us see what is an active transducer. Those transducers that do not need any external source of power for their operation is known as active transducer. So they are also called as self-generating type transducers. These transducers operate under the energy conservation principle. Usually from this transducers, the output of this transducers will get an equivalent electrical output signal. For example, temperature or strain, will get if you are measuring temperature or strain, will get electrical potential as the output without any external source of energy. Active transducers can be categorized as in this diagram, that is photovoltaic, thermoelectric, electromagnetic, piezoelectric, chemical, etc. So according to the inputs they are receiving, it can be classified into these categories. Now let us see passive transducers. Passive transducers need external source of power for their operation. So they are not self-generating type of transducer. Normally a DC power supply or an audio frequency generator is used as an external power source. These transducers produce the output signal in the form of variations in resistance, capacitance, inductance or some other electrical parameter in response to the quantity measured. The passive transducers can be further classified as shown in this chart, that is variable resistance, variable reactance, optoelectronic, Hall effect type, etc. And they can be again further classified, like variable resistance can be classified into strain gauges. Then another category is thermistor, potentiometer, photoconductor or LDR. And variable reactance type passive transducers can be classified into inductive type and capacitive type. And the inductive type can be classified into variable resistance, variable permeability, LVDT. Now the optoelectronic category of passive transducer can be classified into photoemissive, and another category is photoconductive type. And so these are the various classification of passive transducers. Now let us see another category of transducer type, that is primary and secondary transducer. Some transducers contains mechanical as well as electrical device. The mechanical device converts physical quantity to be measured into a mechanical signal. Such mechanical device is known as primary transducer because they normally deal with or they normally convert physical quantity to be measured into a mechanical signal. Then the second part, that is electrical device. The electrical device will then convert that mechanical signal into corresponding electrical signal. Such electrical device is known as secondary transducer. So this can be explained with an example. So this is actually a transducer for measuring the pressure. So this is one part. So you can see a diaphragm. So that diaphragm converts the pressure that is to be measured into displacement. Displacement is a mechanical signal. So this diaphragm part is known as primary transducer. Now that displacement is then converted into change in resistance using a strain gauge. So the strain gauge This strain gauge acts as the secondary transducer. The next category of classification of transducer is according to the transduction principle. So according to the transduction principle, the transducers can be classified into capacitive transduction type, second one is electromagnetic transduction type, then inductive transduction type, then piezoelectric induction type, then photovoltaic transduction type, and then photoconductive transduction type. Now let us see one by one. Now let us see capacitive transducer. In capacitive transducers, the measurand is converted to a change in capacitance. Next is electromagnetic transduction. In electromagnetic transducers, the measurand is converted to voltage induced in conductor by changing magnetic flux in the absence of excitation. So normally electromagnetic transducers are self-generating active transducers. So in this transducers, the motion between piece of magnet and electromagnet creates a change in flux, and this change in flux can be sensed, and that can be converted into signals. Next type of transducer is inductive transducer. In inductive transducers, the measurand is converted into change in self-inductance of a single coil. This is achieved by displacing the core of the coil that is attached to the mechanical sensing element. Next type of transducer is piezoelectric induction type. In piezoelectric induction transducers, the measurand is converted into changing electrostatic charge or voltage that is generated by crystals when they are mechanically stressed. So as shown in the figure, when pressure is applied to this piezoelectric crystal, that is converted into change in electrostatic charge or voltage that can be observed or measured from here. Next is photovoltaic transduction type. So these types of transducers use the principle of photovoltaic cells. In photovoltaic transition type transducers, the measurand is converted into voltage generated when the junction between the dissimilar materials is illuminated as shown in figure. So as you know the photovoltaic principle, this is a junction made by two dissimilar material. So when you impose this to, or when you expose this to light, electricity is, or a change in EMF is produced, and that can be measured. That phenomena of photovoltaic cells can also be explained with this help. So these are two different materials, N-type and P-type semiconductor, and this is the junction. So when it is exposed to light, EMF is generated, which can be measured. So normally we can measure a presence of light by using these transducers. Next category is photoconductive transduction. In photoconductive transduction type transducers, the measurement, that is normally light, the change in light is converted into change in resistance of the semiconductor material. So according to the change in light, the resistance of the semiconductor will be changed, and that you can sense. So that principle is used in these types of transducers. So generally we can say that according to the transduction principle, we can classify transducers like this, that is, when the capacitance is changed according to the change in measurand, it is capacitive transducer. When there is a change in electromagnetic flux according to the change in measurand, it is electromagnetic transduction. Then when where there is a change in inductive inductance, it is inductive type. And when a pressure to an piezoelectric crystal generates some change in EMF, it is piezoelectric type. And then when when the measurement is light and the change in that light is converted into EMF generated in PV cell, it is photovoltaic type. And when the measurement, that is light, a change in that light is converted into the change in resistance of a semiconductor, it is photoconductive type. Another category of transducers is classification is transducer and inverse transducer. Transducers normally convert electrical quantity to electric quantity. All the examples that we have seen now are like the non-electric quantity is converted into electrical quantity. Now we have also another category known as inverse transducer. Inverse transducers convert electrical quantity into a non-electrical quantity. Now let us see some passive transducers. One such is resistive transducer. Normally resistive transducers are those transducers where the change in the physical phenomenon that is to be measured is converted into change in resistance, and that is measured. There are 4 types of resistive transducers. One is potentiometer, second is strain gauge, third is thermistor, and fourth is resistant thermometer. We will see one by one. One type is potentiometer. As we know, potentiometer is used for measuring voltage division, and we know that the construction of potentiometer, they consist of a resistive element provided with a sliding contact. Another resistive transducer is strain gauge. Usually a strain gauge is a passive transducer, and this particular resistive transducer converts the mechanical elongation and compression into resistance change. So this is the construction of a strain gauge. It is having a wire of considerable length, and it is pasted or placed over the element whose strain is to be measured. So when there is a elongation or a compression to the element that is to be measured, or when the element elongates or compress, the strain gauge also will elongate or compress. So when it elongate or compress, there is a change in length of this strain gauge, and that change in length creates a change in resistance. So this change in resistance can be analyzed and the corresponding electrical signal is produced. The next 2 type of resistive transducers are thermistor and resistant thermometers. So that will be discussed in detail in module 6. So that's all about various types of transducers. In the next class we will be dealing with motion and dimension measurement. Thank you.